Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Matthew. Now, before Abraham, Ali, and I recap episode 5 of Survivor Cambodia Second Chances, I wanted to let you all know that a reliable source has informed Survivor Now podcast of the alleged title for the next season of Survivor Australia, also known as Australian Survivor. You can watch and listen to the three of us, plus Randy, share our expectations and reservations about the potential new season by joining our superfan membership for $2.99 per month. That's right, $2.99 a month. In fact, all of our membership tier level prices have changed. So make sure for 99 cents a month, you can join as a casual fan, for $2.99 a month, a super fan, and if you join for $5.99 a month, you will receive the tribe membership. So pay no attention to the prices listed in the graphic below. And if you are currently unable to join as a channel member, but you still want to support our channel, you can do so by subscribing to our YouTube channel, liking this video, leaving comments, and following us on Instagram and Threads at Survivor Now Podcast. We're also on Twitter at Survivor Now Pod. I'm just excited to get into this episode. So we started off with Angor, and it's night 11, and Wu is very thankful to not have been voted out. We also see Abby talking about giving Wu a second chance, but we also see Tasha and Savage celebrate. So how is the tribe doing so far at this time?
I feel like Savage and Tasha are probably very happy because they're kind of on this high of like, we were at the bottom and now we're on the top, even though they had a very fractured fall. But I feel like you see this thing happening with kind of Tasha and Savage chat and all that, but then also you see Abby, who was like, I was controlling the vote. And I don't know if it's just my perspective. However, I feel like if Abby wanted to save Varna, I feel like Tasha and Savage last round regardless would have voted for Varna to go home, and we would still be here regardless. So for me, I feel like there is this happiness, but I feel like for Abby, it's like smoke and mirrors. Like she's happy, but she's not really seeing the bigger picture of it.
You know, in the game of Survivor, it's always going to be tribes that play in the game of Survivor and tribes waiting to play the game of Survivor. And we see where Tasha and Savage are playing the game of Survivor. What can we do? How can we do it? How we kind of push people. And Tasha already says she is really trying to manage Abby. Abby is a handful. You got Savage. You don't have Wu yet. You're waiting to get Wu. The vote brings Wu back to the family. But you see that, hey, two of them was going to go. Well, one was going to go. You only needed one to help out. So the rest of the tribes that are not playing, because they haven't had to vote anybody out, they haven't really played Survivor yet, because you don't really see how something happens until you vote somebody out. But we see where Savage and Tasha came in at the bottom, and now they got control of their own tribe now. And they just really just kind of maneuvering through, because really now, when you start losing people, you're just trying to get to the merge. So you're trying to figure out everything to get to the merge, and man, they're playing a masterful game.
Also, sorry, just one note that I wanted to mention as I forgot. The one part when they were talking about obviously the vote and stuff, and it was nighttime. The one thing that did make me chuckle is they were all talking. They were like, "Oh, Varna's in such a better place now." They were almost talking like that. And I was like, he's just gone to Ponderosa. I just found that really fun.
Oh, yes.
I caught that. But some may say Ponderosa, not to win $1 million, but overall is a better environment than staying on the islands. I found that to be very funny as well. And to your point, Abraham, I really love, we hear Tasha say this a little bit later in the episode, but she says, hey, being on the bottom and working your way to the top is all a part of this game. And I have to say, as a viewer, I like those storylines more than just someone who is dominant the entire time. Both are, great, make for great winner edits in the end, regardless of which path your game takes. I have to say, as a viewer, I like the fight up to the top.
Yeah, I like to say, look, it ain't nothing better than an underdog. So we get a chance to see what the underdogs play like. But hold on, I got to talk about Ponderosa. Even though we're not dying at Ponderosa when we get there, we are mentally exhausted, and you're just getting more and more displaced with your thoughts, because you're trying to figure out why you got voted out, and then you're waiting for that next person. So for them, it's 3 days. they got to sit at Ponderosa for 3 days and wait to see who the new person is. And you're just hoping it's one of your tribe members. You're just hoping to say, oh, just bring my tribe member here. Because now you're just kind of replaying the whole game over and over again. Don't get me wrong. Now, you do have a great time at Ponderosa, but it's not like your mind is still playing the game. So that's kind of interesting.
Now, is it the same Ponderosa that the players who get voted out at Merge go to, and they just keep everyone separated?
No, we're all separated. So what they do is you have the first Merge. People that don't make Merge, they're in one group. And for us, I know we left. And for all the seasons after us, they either move us to the main island for Fiji, because it's a main island versus the islands that we shoot on. And then the next group, the ones that's actually going through the actual process of voting and determining who's going to get the actual win, they're at the Ponderosa by themselves.
Got it. Oh, that's super fascinating. Now let's go over to Bion and talk about this fun little exchange. We have Monica, Kimmy, and Kelly Wigglesworth. They're going to go. It's good. They go clamming in the morning, which is that's awesome that they have clams so easily available to their beach. But there seems to be a little disagreement about how many clams they should take for the possibility of depleting the entire ocean of clams. Ollie, how do you feel about this exchange?
Monica had a damn point. Kimmy, it's a damn clam. When I watched First of all, I will say I did enjoy the fact that we saw Monica, Kimmy, and Kelly kind of being the providers and kind of showing that thing of like, do you know what? It's not just kind of the Aussie archetypes, the Malcolm archetypes that have to come and provide for the tribe. Like everyone can do that. But yeah, like when I was watching this, like I do feel like Monica was making like smart points in the sense of if we're going to be here for a while, and I kind of agree with it. If I was in that situation, I wouldn't want to just grab everything and eat it, because we run the risk of having to stay there for however many extra days and then being depleted of food. And it was quite funny because during the exchange, obviously Kimmy was like, oh, I'm not going to be more emotional, like I'm not going to do all this. Yet she was being emotional, and I was like, she's the same girl from season 2. And there was one quote that I remember her saying, which was, I'm not used to giving, she's not used to giving me an opinion when it's not welcome. But the whole game is about listening to people's opinions, and even if you don't agree with them, just letting it go by and just, but I feel like with Kimmy, it's kind of like, if she doesn't like the opinion, she's going to cut it down, and it's like, that's where then the animosity comes from. So in my mind, I do think like Monica handled it really well, as opposed to Kimmy, who was just like, it's getting on my damn nerves. And I'm like, she's just talking about a clam, babes. She's just a clam.
Look, he said in clams. Look, as you can see, Kimmy is in my picture to the right over here. And here's the thing. I got to go against Ali on this one. There is no way that they were just going to overfish the clams. No way. I mean, you're literally talking about you just grabbing every clam every day, 24 hours a day. It's the ocean. There's always going to be food in the ocean. But, you know, if you get hungry, then you got a problem, because now you got to actually go out there and get the clams. And here's where you got to manage yourself. Survivor is an interesting game, because now you're seeing where people are starting to break down playing the game to just managing their own personalities, where Monica's like, hey, we shouldn't do this right here. But that's Monica's personality. And Kim is like, look, man, there's plenty of food here. We can eat and we can compete. We're only here for X number of days. We're not going to deplete it in that amount of time. And then you start saying, well, Kimmy played in season 2. Was season 2, season 3? And here's where we started to see the difference in playing styles, where people's like, you know what, I'm already fed up with you. And here's the thing, the funny part about it is they're winning. They're not losing when they got to vote anybody out. They're winning. So here's a fine line between saying, you know what, I'm just going to let that ride for now, or am I going to address the fact that she's getting on my nerves?
And I think Kimmy even said that at one point. She said, if my biggest problem out here on this beach is Monica, then I'm doing all right. And I think that's a good way to look at it, right? If they hadn't gone to tribal at the end of this episode, they probably, you know, Kimmy probably would have kept the piece going for as long as she was able to. I'm sort of in between both of you at this point. You know, I do think to some extent, maybe there could have been a compromise. Maybe they move the clams a little bit closer to shore so that they have easy access to them at a future moment, right? Maybe they could have agreed to do that. But I also, at times, I was like, Monica, like it seems like you're not getting anywhere with Kimmy. Maybe just best to let it go. We have Rob in the chat who says that their biggest problem with this episode is Kimmy not understanding sustainable fishing. And as a reminder, if you would like to engage with us as we do our live streams, because we do record these lives, please feel free to join us the next time we do an episode. So thanks, Rob. I know it was a very funny moment.
Here's some insight. So here's the thing, especially for Fiji. I can only speak to Fiji. I wasn't somewhere else. There were two types of crabs in Fiji. One was a rock crab, which was easier to catch. And it's pretty meaty, so it's an easy crab to catch. And then there's the ones that are on the rocks that are moving at light speed. There was no way we were ever going to catch all those crabs. Now, the other ones were a little slower, easy to catch. But those other ones, yeah, you could cook them, you could eat them, but you had to put some work in. So I don't think anybody for those short amount of time, 30 days or 29 days or whatever, you're not going to outdo the ocean. The ocean still is going to come up number one.
And Abe, I have to ask, because it's a very timely question when it comes to Global Survivor. Were you ever nervous that anyone was going to poison you?
Let me tell you something. Here's what you'll find out if you subscribe to one of our channels. Somebody poisoned themselves. This is behind the scenes. Somebody really, you just don't eat everything. And they ate some stuff they shouldn't have eaten. Well, I wouldn't have eaten. I didn't eat it anyway. But sure enough, it made them sick. So I think it's more so of you will poison yourself versus being poisoned.
That's a good note. I always get worried with food. So I know if I'm out there, I'm like, can I please get some sort of meat thermometer out here or something just to check? But let's move on to the reward challenge. No. So definitely not. At the reward challenge, we get 3 conjoined members from each tribe will roll a barrel carrying the 4th member of their tribe towards a series of flagpoles. At each flagpole, the person in the barrel will get out and retrieve a bag of balls by uncoiling a rope. Once all 3 bags of balls have been collected, a member from each tribe will play Survivor Skee Ball and attempt to land all of their balls on the board. The first tribe to finish wins comfort items like blankets, chairs, and hammocks, as well as some refreshments when they return to camp. And the second tribe to finish doesn't win all of that, but they do win a tarp. Now, Jeff calls Sierra out for not doing well at this challenge in blood versus water. So we're seeing a lot more of the hints of, hey, we're doing challenges that we've done in the past that all of you have failed at.
Yeah, messy Jeff is always available to just stir the pot. I love it. First of all, I love this challenge because now you have to select the right people not to sit out the previous challenge so they could play in this challenge, and you don't know what's coming up. So you get there, and we see that Sierra's she's in the barrel, and you got to remember you're getting dizzy in that barrel. Then you got to get out that barrel. Then you got to try to unwind stuff. And then you got Jeff just narrating on the background saying, you're doing the worst. You're in dead last. And you have to suppress the one to throw something and hit him in the head because it's like, come on, man. We know we're doing bad. And you see Sierra is doing bad again.
Monica. You mean Monica?
Monica.
No, Sierra was another.
Kelly Wentworth was in the barrel now.
Kelly Wentworth was in for Takeo, yeah. Kelly Wentworth was doing the uncoiling. And then Monica was
Sierra. I'm sorry.
Ion.
But I do love that kind of, we are seeing this thing of they're bringing challenges back where at least one person has some sort of redemption story to it. It brings that nice kind of second chance thing into the kind of challenges, which is nice to see. I think you can kind of see with the first kind of part of the challenge how people kind of judged it. Like you could see Bion went for just the tiniest. You saw kind of Takeo went for, I don't want to say tiniest because I think Kelly is like one of the tallest ones there. But they went for more agile and kind of who could still fit in there and still participate well. And then obviously Angkor had Wu, so he's just like he's like Mr. Amazing, can somehow do everything, and I'm like, how?
Look, I can't fit in that barrel, so I'm not getting in that barrel. I can't fit. So no,
I'm too tall.
It was so funny watching all of them try. You could kind of tell that they were trying to, like anyone who was in a barrel was trying to rearrange their positioning each time they got in to see what would work better. So there were times where I would see like Wentworth's ponytail and like her legs sticking out. There were other times the arms were sticking out. It was hilarious. And I have to say, my favorite moment was when Monica got stuck upside down, and that's all she said. I'm upside down, and they had to pull her out.
Look, you're dizzy. You dizzy as hot. You're in a barrel. We do see Joe. We do see Joe this time. Joe is in the challenge. We see him this time.
We see quite a lot of Joe, as well as some other people we haven't seen confessionals from this episode. So I can't wait to talk about more of those people as they come up. So we get a little bit more in the challenge. I think we sort of talked about a lot of the highlights. We have Jeremy, Keith, and Wu who are shooting the balls at the end of the challenge once they get there. Jeremy eventually lets Spencer step in. Do you think there's some sort of strategy in terms of just knowing when it's not working anymore, or you have to switch out with another tribe member? We see some people get a little defensive when it's time for them to switch out and refuse to do so.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's knowing your strengths as a person, and if you can tell that you're struggling, and like if you're kind of if you can shout at the back, like, does anyone feel confident? If they say yes, and you know that you're not, tap out. Like, I definitely think the one thing I always appreciate when I see Jeremy is quite a humble player. He knows his strengths and he knows his weaknesses, and I think he could tell very much there he was struggling, and Spencer clocked it, and Spencer went swap, and Jeremy just went, yeah, let's do it. Which I kind of appreciated with Jeremy. I know that there are many players that are like, kind of have that thing on their shoulder, like, nope, it's me. I have to do it no matter what. So I do appreciate Jeremy.
I'm gonna ride this ship to the ground.
Yeah, and it was a nice moment for their story. Also, we do see more of it, but it just like it seemed like they have each other's backs, especially in the challenge.
I think you want to build currency, and you don't want to take the L directly, but if you got to take a L, take one on the reward challenge. That's the time to take a L. But if you want to switch out, I think Spencer did a good job. He said, look, I noticed Jeremy's not doing too well. Let me go. Spencer really only had to land 1 or 2 balls, because all you had to do is either beat what Jeremy did or try to match what he did, and then you basically were going to run out of time. But we do see where Keith didn't switch out, and Keith won his doing it himself. So we got a chance to see Keith play. We got a chance to see Keith win. We see Wu. Wu is definitely saying, hey, I can get it done. And you're right, Ali. Some people's pride get into the way of, I know I can do this. The problem is you're running out of time, because you're competing against 2 other tribes now, and you don't have that much time on that type of challenge. You're just rolling the ball. But it was a great challenge. I mean, everybody had to be involved. And you kind of say, well, how hard is it roll the ball? It's kind of hard.
Also, for Wu, who had been in the barrel spinning and getting dizzy, to be the one to shoot the balls for Angor, I wanted to applaud Wu. I thought, thank goodness that it worked out for their tribe. And I think it's all the more proof that keeping him was the correct choice.
Now, some people might be saying, if you get a tarp, oh man, they're only getting a tarp. When you're in a rainy environment, the tarp is the difference between having a good night's sleep and just being miserable. And we've seen different episodes of Survivor, different seasons where our tarp made the difference in just comfort. So don't discredit that. Don't discredit that tarp as like, it's just a tarp. No, even for our season, it rained in Fiji, but you also got the palm frond trees. Don't keep rain off of you. They might keep the sun out your face, but they ain't keeping the rain off you.
That's good to know. I mean, it goes to show that having something as seemingly little as a tarp goes such a long way in terms of boosting camp morale. Now, so Takeo wins first place, so they win the comfort and luxury items. And as we mentioned, Angor wins the tarp, coming in second place. Takeo, I don't think Takeo really needs any of this stuff. They got Joe. They have their hammocks. They have their poolside luxury. People are serving fruit on platters to them. So with this stuff, I am really eager to see what Joe can come up with all of these materials.
They live in a good life. But here's the thing about it is, as long as you don't lose, you don't really play the second half of the game of Survivor. Because you don't start playing until you start losing. then you start really playing. Right now, you're just enjoying being on the beach, hanging out, talking, getting to know your castmates, talking about your different seasons and stuff. When people start losing challenges, then we're going to start seeing people start playing the game of Survivor.
Yeah, we learn, when we see Bion go to tribal, they kind of also talk about how now is the time where we get to see where everyone is aligned. So I think you're definitely right. That's why I don't think going to tribal is necessarily something that should scare a player. I think that may hold players back from acting in the way that they should at tribal or getting, the strategy that they need. However, you definitely want to avoid it as much as you can, to protect yourself.
Oh, yeah.
All
definitely
right,
to the merging.
Definitely to the merge. And then it's an individual's game. And Spencer touches on something about the difference between the tribal game, which we're at now, and the individual game at Tribal Council that I'm also excited to talk to both of you about. So we go back to camp and it's day 12. You know what's funny? Now that I'm paying more attention as I'm taking these notes to the days, the number of days that they've been there so far, it's feeling so, not the episodes, they're exciting, but understanding that we're only on day 12 out of 39 feels so insane to me, especially being this far along in episodes.
Yeah.
It's so a long time. Them days move like snail hours.
Abe, having done this before, could you imagine doing like Australian Survivors? I think, what was it?
It was like
40.
Yeah. It's like 44.
40 some days. You're talking about almost a month and a half. And here's the thing about it is when you're doing something, it's great. It's when you're not doing anything that you're driving yourself crazy, because you always got to have some level of playing the game, even though you might just want to lay on the beach that day because you're not doing anything, but you still got to always have that level of understanding that you're in a game and you constantly have to play. Now, you can always feel secure because you got 3 or 4 people and they're good to go. And we see that where we see Jeremy and them talking, saying, hey, let's just keep this 4. No, we see it with Keith. Keith and his group are saying, no, let's just keep this 4. We see Terry that's out there in the ocean, and Terry has already been identified as a sacrificial lamb for the next vote. So they're kind of relaxing and enjoying themselves. So when you have that type of initial support when you play in the game, you're good. But if not, you're just steady playing. We see Spencer and we see Kim, who are 2 players from a different tribe. They're just waiting to have to go to tribal council to see what their fate's going to look like. And you don't find that out until you vote. So it's the longer the game goes, the more you got to figure out how to manage yourself and manage the game itself.
All good points. All good points. Now, if you're joining us in the live chat or you're watching this after the fact, I'm curious to know, what is your ideal game length if you were going on the show? 22, 39, plus for the Abe's giving the thumbs up, plus for the global Survivor seasons? Let us know in the chat. I'm very curious. So, Anchor celebrating, as you've hinted at, Abraham, we're seeing the divides, which really is everyone against Terry. And Kelly is thrilled by this. Kelly Wentworth.
Yeah, I assume Kelly was always going to be thrilled by it, but I think especially when you saw the swap happen, I could kind of see this naturally progressing, because especially when you look to Terry's confessionals, he was very much, we've got to kill a tribe. Why do I even need to worry? It's great. And he went back to Panama, Terry, which was challenges, we're sorted, no need to worry about game. And then we've seen it come back to bite him, where he's like, I'm going to go do this. There's all good. We're not even going to be strategizing. And he's off, and all 5 of them have gone, we're together. So I do feel like
Terry's a guy.
It's that thing where he's gotten too comfortable, and he's let the game element go like this, and he's letting the survival part creep in. And yeah, I'd kind of be like Kelly as well. I'd be like, good, helps them out, because then she has that chance to talk to Joe, talk to Keith, talk to Sierra, talk to Cass, and build relationships so that, if Terry does go, she's going to make sure that she's not the next.
Kelly just a bus driver right now. She's just driving the bus, running over people. But she has we got to remember, she also has a hidden immunity idol too that no one knows about. So she has an ace in the hole that she could play if her name comes up or it feels like somebody may be voting for her. But she also has a bunch of loyal players around her. Keith is not the player where you're going to be like, I'm going to give my word and vote somebody out. That wasn't Keith's game when he first played. So we get a chance to see Jeremy going to play to win. Fishback, I'm not know where Fishback is going right now. He's just playing. But you got a couple of solid people where once they give their word is going to be bond. So it's going to be interesting to see how as they continue to go, will Terry be voted out when they actually lose?
I'm curious to see, but something that made me nervous for someone else was when Joe started going off about, oh, back on my season, everyone wanted me out because they saw they thought I was a threat. I wanted to be like, Joe, no, shush. What are you doing?
Yeah, I feel like he was kind of jinxing himself there. But then also one thing that he said, he was like, yeah, I'm playing the game perfectly right now. And I was like, kind of Dave's point, what have you been doing? You ain't been there. So whether his point was, I'm just laying low, or from what I could gather from him saying that and looking back, is it more so the fact that he's been letting others like put themselves out there? Because I think for a fact he would have done the ski ball, but he let Keith do it. He would have done the hero challenge, but he let Terry do it. So when he says he's trying to mitigate his threat level, does he mean by letting others take the spotlight so that it isn't just him doing it all and he is spreading out the load? Because I think that's what, from my perspective anyway, that's what I would feel like he's referring to.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to be. You don't have to. You got to know when to play and when not to play. We've seen where people don't play in challenges. It's not because they're not good at the challenges. You just got to know when to play. And Joe, especially if you got a Keith that goes up there and wins the challenge, why would Joe have to do it at all? So you're not really worried. And if they do lose, Joe won't be the first person to vote it out because everybody's looking at, okay, if we have another challenge. And here's the thing about it is they have enough challenges under their belt to kind of understand what type of challenges could be coming ahead. So you kind of know who you want to keep and who you want to get rid of for challenge purposes. Now, personality purposes, we see where Abby just wants to gun slot everybody. Nobody's safe with Abby because Abby wants to tell everybody to, kick rocks. But we see where other players are really strategic in how they make the decisions on who to keep and who to get rid of. And we're going to see that when we witness somebody else lose a challenge and how they come about who they want to vote out.
Right. And I will also say in response to Joe kind of reflecting on the game he played last time, I agree. I think his social game is doing very well. He's providing, he's friendly, he's doing, all these things. I also agree that he is choosing the correct challenges to compete in. And I think that's going to do really well for him. There's other people, we sort of see Keith talks about how the first time he played, the thing that he missed out on was forming a solid group. Sierra says that forming this group and bringing it to merge is the way forward when we get into individual portion of the game. So we see a lot of reflection of ghosts from games past, I will say. And I thought this was a really cool moment.
Yeah, I just agree. I have nothing to add to it. It was a really nice moment.
Well, let's hop on over to Bion, and we see a nice little moment between Spencer and Jeremy when they go fishing together. And this was very sweet. I really liked how Spencer sort of reflected on being, thinking about how he was not going to be the sort of alpha personality, the provider of his tribe once he got cast on Survivor. And this time around, he wants to have that full Survivor experience and do the things he thought he would never do on the show. And I thought this was a really nice moment.
Spencer and Jeremy were bonding in their bowl. That was all I could think of. It was such a bowl, and I was just like, all they need is some water in there. They're having a lovely time.
How do you get in out of that bowl? I thought, because, Joe was in that bowl with him before. That was Joe's bowl. You're right, Ollie. It was funny. I was like, how do you get in there without falling out? And how do you actually fish in the bowl? But anyway.
But it was a really, again, kind of like we spoke about it a little bit last time. It was those human moments where you're seeing not just their game growth, but their personal growth. And you did see that with Spencer, which was really a nice thing to see for him.
Yeah, it's really nice. Oh, yeah, sorry, Abe.
I enjoy the edits where you get a chance to see them just be people. You know, it's you know, we're gonna play the game, we're gonna do the challenges, we're gonna have the moments where we're fighting and all that kind of stuff. But I love the edits where they say, okay, just forget about all that. And let's just be people playing this game and growing from this game. I don't care. Anybody that's ever played Survivor or any of the reality show, if you don't grow from it and take something from it, you really kind of lost some of the experience of it.
That's what makes it so interesting for viewers too. It's seeing these people as people in a situation where you as the viewer have to decide, are you going to react in the same way that the people you are watching are reacting and strategizing? And I thought that this was a really great moment for Jeremy as well, because it also, again, reiterated that Spencer, we haven't seen yet, right? They haven't voted, but what it seems like is Spencer is more likely to align with Jeremy and be a right-hand person for Jeremy too. So I think this is going to be really interesting moving forward for Spencer's game, but also for Jeremy's. Shall we hop over to Angor?
Angry? Yeah, let's talk about angry. Let's talk about angry.
Angry. Tribe Angry, they win a tarp and they're celebrating that. That's all great. And we learn a little bit more about Wu and what is his motivation for playing this game, that being the story of his mother's heart transplant. And this was a really sweet moment. I'm glad we got to hear about it. And Tasha asked, Wu about his mother, and he tells the story. But then Abby Maria seems to take the story in a different way.
It's one of those funny moments where, again, we saw a really nice human moment with Wu and Tasha, and it was so sweet. And then Team TV Abby is like, no, well, what about my auntie and what about this? And there was a part of me that chuckled, but then there was also part of me that was like, Abby, it was just a sweet moment. It was just one of those, we're just talking about family. No, it was really touching, but yeah, when Abby then was like, because I can't even remember what it was, but it was like, this was Wu's story, and then here's Abby's story all the way over here. I was like, babes, like, just if you can agree with it and you can add to it, perfect. I was like, but then when she brought that game element of, well, what about my story? We can't give him the sympathy though. I was like, that's where you're gonna lose people. You kind of saw her losing Tasha in that instance.
This is so in the context of the game, because when you meet these people outside of the game, it's different from when you're looking at them in that particular little bubble. Within the bubble of the game, Abby Petty is shit. That is petty. You're doing something that you think may help you garner them for favor. And getting voted out or not getting voted out. But that's petty because Wu shared something that was emotionally something that impacted his life. And sometimes you just say, man, this is great. This is something we get to see about the person themselves. Abby more thought it was a strategy. How can I endear them to sentimental value? When I play the game, you could have gave me a sentimental story and I'd be like, okay, thanks. I will think about it after the game. Because we're playing a game, but I'm not going to belittle your feelings or be in a confessional and say, oh yeah, what? So I have sick people in my family. That's not what Wu was doing it for. Wu was actually just being honest and sharing part of his life. So for me, Abby, you petty. So this episode, she gets the award for the pettiness of the episode.
I got the feeling that the story maybe scared Abby a little bit, because if Wu does poll, even whether Wu means it or doesn't intend it in this way, if Wu does, find some way to relate to Tasha and Savage and they decide to go with him, even if empathy is at all involved there, that leaves Abby on the outs. So I think that there was some fear with her there, even when she confronted Tasha and sort of tested the waters to see if Tasha was on the same page about it. I think Tasha really handled this well. Just sort of nodded along, kept going with it. At one point, it seemed like Tasha was going to alter a different perspective, but when Abby sort of doubled down on her thoughts, Tasha was just like, sure, yeah, right. Smile and nod, smile and nod.
Really, when you play the game of Survivor, you have to say, it's not about me. It's not about me. Just when you're there and people talking to you, sometimes you just got to be like, it's not about me. When my opportunity presents itself, I'm going to vote your ass out. But right now, it's just not about me. And it's just, they're managing Abby because Abby is a good resource, because Abby is loyal. Abby's going to do what Abby's going to say she's going to do, and she's not going to differentiate from it, which is great because you don't have to worry about her. But like Tasha said, you still have to worry about her. You don't know what she's going to do next. And everybody you look into this point, even the people that target Abby should have said, you know what, I'm going to leave Abby over here and I'm just going to focus on somebody else, because they wouldn't have got voted out. So we're looking at where Varner gets voted out. He helped Abby. But how did Varner get voted out and he helped? Oh, Varner didn't want to vote Boo out. So, I mean, you just kind of see the dynamics of it. But sometimes we see just the game itself is petty at times. And this is one of those times where I say, you know, it's just being petty. But it's great for viewers. It's great to see the pettiness. Don't get me wrong with that.
I'm here for
Ollie,
it.
Ollie, I'm not going to do anything for you guys. Well,
I'm here for it. And
Matthew, we got to vote him out because Ollie all about the pettiness. So we're going to vote him out.
It's cause drama.
It is such a good juxtaposition sometimes when, because again, I love seeing those human moments. It is so funny. But I'm also here for the petty people. Like, because again, my favorite player of all time is Courtney Yates. So if you know, if anyone here knows who Courtney Yates is, I love a petty comment. Here for it all the time.
Hey Matthew, we got to vote him out there. We got to vote him out because we know he gonna start the pettiness, and him
we know if Ollie starts calling Jeff Probst Jeffrey, it's time. It's time.
Oh, you gotta go.
Oh, all right. We're going to get into the immunity challenge right after we hear from our friends at Bracketology.
My name is Jonah Fielko, and I'm the CEO of Bracketology.tv, fantasy sports for reality television. We offer fantasy games for shows like The Bachelor, Survivor, Big Brother, RuPaul's Drag Race, and counting. You start by creating a community. Within your community, you can create a fantasy league for each show that you want to play fantasy games for. Within the league, you can choose up to 3 of our 4 game types, and our most popular is the Advanced League. Choose a team of contestants, and depending on what they do and say during the episode, that's how your team will gain or lose points each week. We also have elimination-style games like our Confidence Pool. This is where you choose how confident you are that each contestant will survive elimination that week. And we've also got March Madness-style brackets. Come back a couple hours after the episode to check your scores and watch you climb the leaderboard. Bracketology is free to play, so grab your friends, your family, your coworkers, and head to bracketology.tv for more info.
All right, so now we're at the immunity challenge, and members from each tribe will take turns racing to the top of an obstacle course. Once they reach the top, they must launch a sandbag using a slingshot at various targets. First 2 tribes to hit all of their targets win immunity. And we find out that Joe's tribe did this last season, and guess what? They lost the challenge that season. Question, do we think that the reuse of challenges from past seasons is storytelling or budgetary restrictions? Or both?
I want to say for this specific season, it's storytelling. Because again, it's been Joe now, it's been Sierra. There was one for Wigglesworth, Cass, Tasha, and Spencer. You have seen the theme, so I would say it's more storytelling because again, it gives that second chance element, which I appreciate.
Well, I'm with Ollie because here's the thing about it is all those actual challenges came from different parts of the world, so none of them was in Cambodia. So you're talking about recreating something that you might have done in China, where you may have had all the tools and everything else. Like for Fiji, it's hard to get stuff in because Fiji is so far from mainland, and you got to bring stuff into an island. So I like the storytelling part because you get to call out a player that had done the challenge but wasn't successful. I like to call that Messy Jeff 6.0. I'm gonna get some more messiness in, and I think it's great because he's never called a challenge where. So I think a few people have. Anybody won any challenge that they're redoing, or everybody's just kind of lost everything?
Not that they've mentioned, unless you count Wu, whose tribe technically won the challenge that Cass, Tasha, and Spencer lost.
Yeah, so that's called Messy Jeff 6.0. So I love these challenges, and they're not easy challenges, but this one in particular is a good challenge because no one person can dominate the challenge.
Yeah, that's true. And you're right. I love that call out to these challenges have been done in different times of Survivor, in different countries, in different regions. So art department definitely had to see what was done in places that they could recreate those in their place there. And speaking of production, did anyone else notice like the flags that would pop up when the targets would get hit? I thought that was the coolest thing, but it made me wonder, do we think that any of the dream teamers were just like standing behind there, and then like when they would hit the target, they would just be like, you know?
That you know what? I noticed it too. I noticed the colors of this particular episode, just the boldness of the colors that were used in the episode for the different things. That's a good one, Matthew. That's a good one.
Well, Abe, can you actually describe what the dream teamers are for anyone who might not know?
So for the dream teamers are, in essence, they're us. They're the actual cast members that they go out there and they actually run through all these challenges to make sure they're safe, make sure you can actually perform the challenge, make sure it can be something that somebody won't intentionally get hurt on. And they exercise all the stuff we do before we do it. So when by the time we get to it, they'd be like, oh, okay, we know it can be done because the dream teamers have already successfully done it. So that's always an interesting thing. And if you want to be a part of the dream team, it's actually an application out there. You just go online and you fill out to be a part of the dream team. It's a great opportunity because you get a chance, one, to see the world. Quick story. My guy that was on my season, he was a part of I called them the Watchers, but they're the people that help us get through the week of interviews and stuff we have to do. Keith was originally called by a friend to come out and be a part of, I think, Samoa. And he came out as a dream team member. And he ends up going through the process, and then he ends up doing different stuff with Survivor. But he initially got started with Survivor as one of the dream team members. So I challenge anybody, if you want to be a part of this environment, and the people that make up Survivor for the production team are global. You got people from every country that still come back to put on the show called Survivor for the US part. I mean, our doctors were Australian. The people from Africa couldn't come because of the pandemic at the time, but you have staffers from Africa. You got staffers from different countries that come in to form what Survivor is now. So it's a great opportunity to be a part of this whole thing. You know what? If I didn't play, I would definitely want to be a part of the dream team part. And I met a dream teamer one time.
I mean, it's you want to do it, Ollie?
No, I'll do it. If I can't get on Survivor, I'll do the dream team.
Oh yeah. Oh,
because they get.
What'd you say, Abe?
They get to, and here's the kind of stuff, if you become a member, that you get to ask us questions about. The dream teamers are there with us the whole season. They're there the whole time. So you get a chance to, we never interact with them, but as a dream team member, you're there, you're part of this whole process. You get a chance to, if you want to get into film, if you want to get into cinematography, if you want to get into hosting, you're there. You get a chance to do OJ on the job training with the greatest group of people. So I definitely believe, get on out there and test it out.
Yeah, if you love the show Survivor and you don't want to be a castaway on it, I think that's another great option if you want to be in that world. So we see this go. To be determined if there were dream teamers behind the targets waving their flags when they would hit. I would love if that was the case, and then they add the sound effect in later. But we see a couple of things happen. There's not a lot that goes on during this. But one thing that I really wanted to point out was that Steven helped Angkor win by hitting one of their targets, and it counts. It counts.
Oh God, that was so funny. Literally, it was just that, and this is the thing. We're watching it from an angle where we should be able to tell that he's about to hit Angkor's targets. I watched him pull that and I was like, that's going left. And then it did, and I was like, oh, Steve. I forgot about that, but oh my God, Stephen Fishback was so funny. But this is an interesting thing, though, I did want to point out with Bion, because they sat out Jeremy. Now, from my perspective, when I looked at this challenge, I was like, okay, there has to be some strengths with her, because that's not easy to do. I've pulled something like that before, like something similar. It's not easy to do. So no shade. I don't hate Kimmy, but when I looked at this challenge, when I looked at Bion, I was like, the two perfect people to sit out were Kimmy and Monica because they were strength-wise the weakest. Again, no shade to Kimmy, love you really, but I would have just personally, I'd have been like, Jeremy, do this challenge. It's you'll be stronger at it. But
well, Ali, we gotta go back now. We gotta go back. If you sit Jeremy, if you don't sit him out this one, you may have to sit him out the next one. And if he sits out, you know he can compete on the next one. So everything has a level of strategy to it. Now, I want to give a shout out to Kimmy because she did hit her target.
I should.
So
Did
she hit her target. She first time. You got to go back and look at the episode. She hit her target, and that's the thing about it is you just never know who's going to perform at what. But it's the whole strategy of the game is if you don't sit Jeremy, and here's what happens: if one tribe keeps losing, it also impacts the other tribes on who they got to sit out. Because you're like, do I sit these people out this time because if Jeremy and Joe are your top two players and the other tribe has to say you have to sit out three and they're in the three, you got to play chess. When do I sit them out? So it's the whole game is crazy because you always got to be thinking ahead. Jeremy sitting out this time is going to help us if he has to sit out or if we have to sit someone else out. Now, what you didn't count on is Fishback hitting somebody else's target.
I loved it.
Now, would you vote him out for that? That's the question.
Maybe it depends. I feel like if we were on old Bion and that happened, yes, Steven would have been first to go. Absolutely no question about it in my mind. But now we see that Jeremy is sort of relying on Steven as a number for him. So it's a little more cloudy. As we know, Bion ends up losing immunity. Angor and Takeo win. And we hear a couple of things on the mat. Basically, a lot of the questions go to Monica, actually, which is, Monica sort of says that there's nothing wrong with going to tribal council. It's where you get to see where everyone lies. Little does she know. Spencer also then acknowledges that he and Kelly Wigglesworth, who did very well in this challenge, I'll also add, Kelly Wiggles hit some targets. They're at risk for going home. And he hopes that the relationships he has spent time forming are enough to save him. So we go back to camp, and a couple of things happen, but basically we know that Jeremy, Steven, and Monica all agree to vote for Wiggles. And I love how Jeremy did this, where he was like, if there's a gun to your head, who are you voting out? Wiggles? Okay, great, we're doing Wiggles. It was great strategy. Just get them to say a name quickly.
I will say at that time, Monica was safe. Monica had no worries. They were going to go with Kelly. That vote was cemented. Monica wrecked her own opportunity.
I have. So no. I do agree though. Like during that, but what Jeremy did was really smart because at the end of the day, they all went. What do we want to do? Let's do this. And I do agree that when you look at Spencer and Wigglesworth, Spencer is the smarter choice to keep because right now Spencer needs them, needs those people. Kelly, she could survive and she could go back to allies. And I think that's where they were looking at it, which I agree with. Now, also Spencer deciding not to strategize was a good thing. Now, when we talk about Monica, because obviously we know it was Monica and Kimmy were just having a conversation, and all Monica did was just suggest to Kimmy, would we prefer to see Kelly stay just to keep the girls' numbers up? What do you think? Kimmy said no. Monica went, okay, that's fine. It was just a suggestion. That's fine. And then Kimmy walks all the way over to everyone and starts over dramatizing this, being over emotional. And I just watched it and I was like, Monica didn't tank her own game. Kimmy just was over dramatic with the situation. I mean,
but didn't Kelly do the same thing? Yeah, but didn't Kelly do the same thing to Terry?
Wentworth.
Yeah, she was tanking Terry left and right. She said in her own confessional, I'm basically drive the bus over here.
The thing for me is, was Monica always Kimmy's number one person to get out? If so, then good on Kimmy, right? If that is your target and that's what you want to do, good.
I think it was to the clams. It went into the clams that we even saw that they even had a disagreement.
I agree. I think it was totally about Monica just sort of being annoying to Kimmy.
Yeah. And that was the thing, like Kimmy was going, this was my main thing about it. Kimmy was like, she's a snake, we need to get her out. She's doing this, she's a snake. But then if Monica has gone to Kimmy with this information and been like, it's just a suggestion, like, why not? Kimmy's then pretty much snaked Monica. Because she's gone straight to Stephen and Jeremy and been like, here's what's gone on, let's vote her out instead. And again, I'm just going to go with this. Kimmy's reasons, we're going to go with the snake thing and she's the wild card and all this. Kimmy had personal reasons. She just didn't like Monica and would prefer to see Monica go from her own personal social standpoint. So for me, I feel like Kimmy was kind of the pot calling the kettle black in the sense of this person's a snake, but then you're doing snaky stuff as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw Matthew under the bus just like that.
Hey,
that's the game of Survivor. I'll play out last.
I left the clams in the water, Abe. Okay, I did it for you.
We done lost. We done lost. We gotta vote you out.
We'll vote him out.
Hey, I won't go out begging, though. I promise you that. I will say that I do think it was the right call for Jeremy and Spencer to vote Monica out when the evidence was given, right? Because even you're right, Ollie. Monica was just testing the waters with the idea. It wasn't I want to do this, and this. Yeah. It really more came across as, hey, between Spencer and Wigglesworth, maybe we should get rid of Spencer to keep Wigglesworth in, to keep our numbers strong.
Yeah.
But because we also know from Monica's confessionals that she is planning an all-women's alliance, I do think it was right for Jeremy and Stephen to sort of get that done and out of the way with, because it was truly her strategy. So I'll say good on them.
No, and also, but I will give credit to Stephen, because when those three were all kind of talking, like, Stephen was kind of the logical one. He wasn't just straight away being like, okay, then let's go and get rid of Monica. He was the one that's like, let's look at this though, because what would the message be if we vote out a Bion? Because right now, Bion's sticking strong. So I do appreciate Stephen for at least kind of playing devil's advocate on that sense, because he was dealing with a very emotional Kimmy. So I did appreciate that part of Stephen. And it made me appreciate seeing, because you saw how he was at the start of the season, where he was very skittish and very like, oh, we've got to do this. And then you kind of see this more calmer side of Stephen, which I really did appreciate. Like, he was no longer a fish back out of water. He was starting to be in his element. Like, I really did appreciate it.
So the fish back out of water? Okay.
And
we saw the chaos of when you have to go and when you have to start voting. Now we see what it looks like when you got to actually start playing, because up until then they were having a great time. They were winning. There's no pressure. The pressure is not there yet. Now you got to say, what do we send to the remaining Bion once we make it to merge? Why did you vote her out? And they got to answer for that. There's going to be a time where they're going to be like, hey, why'd you vote her out? And some people are going to be like, well, I would have went with her if she'd have did an all-girl alliance because I'm another young lady. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out as we go through the season.
And honestly, the thing I was thinking about when Steven said, what does this look like when we re-meet with the original Bion tribe? I'm just blame Kimmy. I just blame Kimmy for that, making it an impossible choice that they had to go along with it. That it seems like a very obvious solution to that issue of what it looks like. So let's go to Tribal Council. We see a lot more of the same kind of talk that we've gotten at the beach already. Some things I do want to talk about. Ollie, you talked about Spencer sort of downplaying his anxiousness. I loved that. Spencer's really grown on me as a player. And I think watching him be like, I know that I can come across this way. I know that if I do come across this way, the target will move on to me. So I'm just going to, he knows that he needs whoever he is working with to feel like they are trusted by him. And I think that that was great that he sort of took his foot off the gas, even though he was called out by Probst for being that type of player.
Yeah, I was about to say that was going back to a Messy Jeffrey. He literally, when he was talking about Kelly and Spencer, he was like, Kelly's this old school player, like she values the challenges and all that. And again, it was that old school, new school debate. And then he literally shades Spencer and goes, you're the epitome of new school, which is strategy, strategy, strategy. If I was Spencer, I would have been like, again, like what, Jeffrey?
Messy Jeff.
Jeffrey, when he's been messy. No, but I agree, like, but also that exchange, I think Spencer did a really good job of, again, downplaying and proving that he had learned from his past mistakes. So that tribal, I think it was a very good tribal for Spencer because he just knew he just needed to keep his mouth shut and he just needed to lay low. That's all he needed to do. And I think he did that really well on tribal.
Now, if you become a member and join us, here's some of the little tidbits you'll get behind the scenes. When we're going to tribal, we don't get to pick our seats. It is crazy. We just don't get to sit where we want to sit at. They literally say, hey, you're going to sit here, 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 and here. Because think about it. If I could sit where I really wanted to sit, I'm sitting by somebody that I'm probably aligned with. And most of us are trying to hide from Jeff because we don't want to question. We don't want to expose ourselves in tribal, but not Messy Jeff. Messy Jeff is coming for you, especially if he's already seen the footage of what's coming. He's coming for you.
I will say when they were asking the questions, there was one question I did notice that I found was really funny. He asked an emotions question, and I think it was to Fishback. I think he asked a question about emotions and all this. I was sat there like, if you wanted the funniest answer or the most ironic answer, you should have asked Kimmy. An emotions question, it should have been to Kimmy, because Kimmy would have been there like, yeah, we're all deciding our emotions. We're separating all this. I would have been like, Kimmy, girl,
Step in line. Step in line.
I did like Steven's answer to that question, though. He kind of said like emotions are the gateway to strategy in a sense. And I feel like that's been a very true theme that I hadn't sort of picked up on before, or I hadn't been able to vocalize with even the past episodes that we've seen this season, you know, with players like Abby. Now we see Kimmy using emotions as a way to guide their strategy for better or for worse. We don't know how it's going to play out. Maybe you two know, but I don't know how it's going to play out for these people moving forward. I also thought that it's funny. Monica's questions were like, is the vote locked? Do you feel comfortable? Are you surviving? And I felt like Jeff was very much a part of this blind side in his own way.
He did. Messy Jeff. I don't know exactly how Jeff comes up with his questions, but they do seem like they're leaning in a certain direction. And it's like, let me put this player on the pedestal of, you know, we're about to vote you out. But he doesn't know who's going to get voted out. They don't have that footage yet. So that's really what you see is really what happens. And they just edit it and make it looks like what it looks like. But they don't know who until we actually vote. It is funny how everybody goes to the confessional and they whisper. Like the people are that close. They're really not that close to you. So you don't really have to whisper. But it's like, no, I'm going to vote this person. Here's the reason why. You're like, you can speak regular because they're just right there. They're not that close.
Unless you're Crystal and Gabon.
Oh, yeah. Russell just all the.
Have you seen that?
I haven't, but I do love when players, what was it? I think Wendell, his season, I think was he on Ghost Island, Wendell?
He was on Ghost Island.
I think at the voting booth at one point, he explicitly, like very clearly out loud, purposefully, I think that's the guy he called a bad rapper.
Chris Noble.
Chris, thank you, while voting. And I thought that was hilarious. And I love when players do it. So I hope that more players have the nerve to do something like that moving forward. But you're right. It's funny that they all whisper.
Yeah, it's not that far. It's like, literally, you have enough space just to talk in your normal voice. Now, Wendell might have elevated his voice for that one, but we're not that close. We're close, but we're not that close.
So we get a 3-2-1 vote. And this was very sad for Ollie, but very funny as a viewer, I will say. Monica's face when she sees her name pulled out once Then when she turns, when her name's pulled out twice, to when it is revealed she's going home, it is one of maybe my favorite reactions to a vote, to a blindside that I've seen on Survivor.
Oh, they truly blindsided her. But then you also saw their reactions where you kind of saw Fishback and clearly Kimmy were just smirking, being like, we did this. And it's like, they didn't hide it. They didn't hide the fact they blindsided her. And she was just turning around being like, really, guys? If I was her, they would have been called out. But she handled it with grace.
Yeah, it's the blind side. I know what it feels like. You go from voting straight to the confessional, and in your mind, you may want to say some choice things on your confessional, but you also remember it's always going to be submitted in history what you're about to say. So you have a split second to decide on how you want to be looked at. And I thought Monica handled it well. Very appreciative of the fact that she got a second chance to play again. And like she said, I wish I'd have played longer. But the vote was her true reaction, how she felt. Because she was like, you mothers, I know y'all didn't vote for me. But in her confessional, she was really like, hey, I was great for the chance. I had a second chance to come play again. But you're right, Matthew. When you look at her, that is what she's truly feeling about how they treated her for that vote.
Yeah, I like that she didn't try to hide it. She was genuinely very vulnerable in the moment. There are some people that maybe subconsciously you try to play it off of, oh, I knew it was coming this entire time. But I like that it was a genuine surprise. And I do wish that we got to see a little bit more of Monica, but it goes back to that thing that I was worried about last time when she started talking about forming an all women's alliance was I haven't seen her do much of the work to start even, like forming those numbers. And even, Kimmy, this episode even said like, I don't know where this sort of alliance idea came from, but it's very sudden. So it's unfortunate. Ollie, I'm so sorry to see one of your favorites go.
I just want to say this. If Monica is watching, love you. But no, I was really sad for Monica because this was the thing. I know she didn't really get much of the representation this season. I will say I looked back on confessionals and I do believe she got a confessional every time except for like one episode, I think. She always had one confessional. But I think I know when it came to second chances, she was kind of the biggest shock for everyone. Not for me, because I voted for her. But I know that for a lot of people, she was such a surprise to be on the cast. But when you look back at her season on Samoa, I can see exactly why she got brought back for a second chance. And I think she is such an underrated player because she isn't the person that's going to make all the big flashy things like you see nowadays. She is one of those people that is like, let me look, let me observe, and let me do all of this subtle thing like she did in Samoa. And yeah, I think she is a very underrated player, and Monica was robbed, in my opinion. And Monica, if you see this, at me, love you.
Come on the show, Monica. Monica got 3 votes. She got Kimmy, Jeremy, and Steven. You think so?
If you've met Monica, please make
She lives in Queens. She's still in Queens, probably.
Oh,
it's
awesome.
Look, we meet a lot of different people sometimes, and sometimes I forget. I'm sorry.
We'll see. We'll reach out to her. She gets voted by her original Bion tribe members. Then we see that Monica actually did vote for Kelly Wigglesworth. She thought the vote was going there. Spencer also voted for Kelly Wigglesworth, so he was left out. And the only vote for Spencer was from Wiggles. So I have 2 questions for you. One, do we think Spencer is feeling any sort of betrayal from Jeremy for not including him in this vote?
No. I don't think so. And here's the thing about it is, Spencer had to vote for Kelly. There was no other person he could have voted for. If he'd have voted for anybody other than Kelly, it would have sent a message to Fishback and Jeremy that, wait a minute, where's he doing? So he had to cancel out the vote that she was going to vote for him because he was the most logical vote. So their vote just canceled each other out. And again, you never know if what was said to you is the truth. You only can go with what you know is going to help you out. And voting for each other was the only thing helped those 2 out. Monica was the only person that didn't know because she voted for Kelly.
Yeah. I don't think Spencer would be upset about it, because at the end of the day, he's still there and they had his back. Because when he looks at the votes, if he knows that, okay, the votes were going to Kelly anyway, he knows that they weren't targeting him. So I think Spencer will be fine with it. He'll be like, thank you, let's hope we can work together moving forward. That's what I think he'll do.
That's true. And how do we see original Bion reacting to Monica being gone?
I feel like it depends on the person.
Yeah, I think they thought Monica was going to try to set up an all-girl alliance, which didn't align with what they were trying to get done. To me, Monica overplayed herself at the wrong time. I think she had a good idea for the all-girls alliance, but when you're dealing with smaller tribes and you're saying, you know what, I need to make it to the next phase of Survivor before I can do certain things, you have a better chance of getting there. Had she just said, okay, I'm with you, gentlemen, I'm with this other team, Bion, we're going to stick together, and I'm just going to play, it would have been one of the two people that came in. And we've seen the same thing when we see not Fishback, but we see Tasha and Savage. They came into the tribe and took over and got the votes they needed in order to stay. And the same thing is going on here, where somebody that was a part of the original tribe is getting voted out because they were already trying to set up something.
Oh. I'm very excited to see how we move on from here, especially after having this epic blindside. We are going to be back next week for episode 6. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.